and welcome. Today we're going to be traveling down into the abyss, and that means we're going to have to take on the Great Grey Wolf Sif. Now, the Great Grey Wolf Sif guards Artorias' great sword, and the reason I bring that up is because in an earlier episode I mentioned Quelaag is guarding the second Bell of Awakening. I just wanted to emphasize that that point does echo throughout the Dark Souls series. Additionally, sorry, maybe I ought to tell a joke so that I'm a little more upbeat. I was watching the Majority Report, as I told you all about, and there was a moment where it cut to another news station, and the host told a joke, and well, okay, first, before we get into that, do you remember the show King of the Hill? There was a character in there that was the spokesperson for the Megalomart named Chuck Mangione. Just keep that in mind. And now I will share the joke. I'm very sorry, by the way. I'm going to censor all the audio. It's from Majority Report where I got it. I don't watch the news station that it came from. I consider them to be propaganda, but I want everyone here to understand what they feel is comedy so that I can tell you a joke in the same spirit, because I think StickyBasket is much more about reflecting this sort of comedy back. So here is the joke.
Jesse, what do you think?
How many trans teens killed themselves today, Jessica?
Jesus.
I didn't get my update yet. I don't know.
Well, no, because you guys said that if you wouldn't let trans teens do whatever they wanted, they were going to become suicidal. So I'm just wondering, you know, between this and the no surgeries, we should see a rash of teenage suicide this year, right? Obviously, I'm being sarcastic because that was a BS excuse.
Okay, so, all right. Jesse Waters wants to make jokes about trans people, huh? Well, as the trans veteran, I know fighting words when I see them. Fighting words being legally defined as words to which any other response from a reasonable person cannot be justified other than fighting. And I believe making a jokes about something as serious as he just made a joke about, those are fighting words. So, we had a setup earlier, and I asked you all, if you could Mangione one Fox newscaster, who would it be and why? Ha-ha! Yeah, I think that joke kills. Sorry, too soon? If you could Epstein one president of the United States, who would it be and why? Oh, would it be the one that got on Epstein's island and has credible accusations from a 15-year-old of sexual assault? Is that the predator who's trying to keep women's sports safe? Is that who we're dealing with? Sorry. I don't mean to direct that at you, my audience. I love you all. But again, I am very charged up. Politics around this time is heavy, and I just want to play Dark Souls. So we should be heading down from the Deep Root Garden to Valley of the Drakes, and then we go into Blighttown, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna look for a pyromancy. We're gonna try and find the power within. Now, I want to talk a little bit about critics of the past. I am a big fan of movies. When I was growing up, my dad had a wall full of movies. I really enjoyed it. He'd get them from like the 3 for $5 bin at pawn shops. And one of my favorite movies of all time is The Peaceful Warrior. Now, after I enjoyed it for quite some time, I looked up what the reviews said of it, and critics did not like it. The audience did. And I guess that kind of reaffirmed, okay, it's okay that I enjoyed that movie. But a lot of times, the things I enjoy aren't necessarily affirmed by the review sources, and that's what kind of inspired me to make this Dark Souls series. So I mean, Peaceful Warrior is a great movie. Check it out if you want. It's about a gymnast who breaks his leg and then is recovering and goes through a process of self-discovery to find the strength within himself to continue onward in spite of his struggles, because he's trained his entire life for the Olympic gold and now is facing an injury that means he can't go for the gold anymore. And I won't get into it from there, but it's a very great movie. The next movie I want to go over, though, is called Kibakichi. And this movie, I believe it translates to Werewolf Samurai, but it is my favorite movie, I think, almost of all time. In terms of, like, storyline, it slaps. You know what the audience thought? They thought it was a bucket of spilled popcorn. What a hurtful emoji. But the thing is, it's a great movie. It's about a samurai who wanders the land and he comes upon a village of sort of demons. And these demons lure in people who gamble, so they're seen as wicked people, and they only feed on the wicked people. They are yokai, so as beasts, they must feed on people. That's, from my understanding, a part of the Japanese cultural lore surrounding yokai. And by luring in the wicked through games like gambling, they're not doing any harm. Well, Kibakichi shows up, and he's not having it with these excuses. He thinks that humans and yokai should be able to live in harmony together. And come to find out, the yokai have actually made an agreement with the government around that time that presents a peace agreement between the yokai and the Japanese government, which is incredible. But the Japanese government, they pull the old switcheroo and they come into the yokai village with a bunch of guns, and you find out why he's called Kibakichi. So that's a wonderful movie. Don't take that bucket of spilled popcorn too seriously. And then now I want to get into the real reason we're here. It's the game critics, and the reason specifically Dark Souls is such a soft spot for me. Now, as many of you know, in November of 2004, Legend of Zelda Minish Cap released, and then it was reviewed in the February issue of Game Informer, which was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Well, I think it was a little later that year, a Pokemon game came out called Pokemon Blue Mystery Dungeon, and I absolutely loved it. I played hours into it. I cried at several parts throughout the storyline. Several parts. And this is while I was in the closet. I was emotionally shut off, but this Pokemon game touched me. Sorry, I don't want to get too much into how much I love Pokemon. I'm not even that good at it. But I have a original Pokemon Blue cartridge with my dead name on it and 151 Pokemon because I completed the Pokedex using the Mew glitch that I found on an old Game Winners site. And I, for some reason, cannot get rid of it because I love the Pokemon on there too much. I spent way too much time with them. Anyway, you know what Blue Mystery Dungeon got from Game Informer? 3. Yeah. Hurts a little bit more than a bucket of spilled popcorn, doesn't it? Especially when you look at it that way. Now, I mentioned I was a big Ron Paul fan, and that came about because I was in my senior year of high school. So this is many moons later, but I had a monthly subscription to Game Informer, and I was on the fence with reviews. I didn't know what to think of them, you know. Now, in September of 2009, there was the game Demon Souls that came out. I had no knowledge of it because that month, the game of the month was Left 4 Dead 2, which I assume everyone plays. So much so that I was messaging a lady on an online dating site and asked if she played Left 4 Dead 2, and she said, I don't know what that game is. And I was like, well, you have Steam though, so doesn't everyone with Steam just have that? I thought it goes on sale for $250 all the time, and within my family and stuff, we play it. We still go back and play it. Left 4 Dead 2 was a great game, and it was game of the month. And I wrote it down, December of 2009. So naturally, I overlooked Demon Souls. But when I was in my government class, a friend at the time was reading the Dark Souls guidebook, and this would have been around 2011, so it was around Dark Souls release time. And then he says, oh yeah, this is about a sequel off of Demon Souls. And I was like, well, I know nothing about Demon Souls, so I'll go and play that, and maybe I'll see if I like Dark Souls. I like Demon Souls. I had a great time. But then Dark Souls came out, and then the review came out. 8.75, a Game Informer Silver Award. Game Informer Silver. Gross. And I felt betrayed. I thought, well, you know, I'll find solace in the fact that I think that this game is definitely worth more than that. And I've actually developed my own scale. If you look back in the StickyBasket archives, maybe one day I'll make them public. Who knows? But I have a rating scale out of 13 that I go by when I'm rating any game. We haven't gotten to the end of Dark Souls, so I haven't been able to give you a rating on it yet. But we're getting there. My scale goes higher than the 10-point scale of Game Informer. That's why Game Informer's out of business now. I didn't do it, but I'm sorry, Game Informer. You brought this upon yourself. Anyway, to continue on, I would like to say many moons went by of enjoying Dark Souls and having a wonderful time, and then Dark Souls 2 came out, and I thought to myself, more Dark Souls? That's weird. What? Why? How's there a number 2? There, you either link the Age of Fire or you bring about the Age of Dark. And then I picked it up, and it feels like you walk through, I don't know, syrup or something, and I can't do it. And you know what Game Informer gave Dark Souls 2? 9.75. Game of the month. Game Informer Platinum. Game Informer Platinum, but Dark Souls got Game Informer Silver. Are you serious? So, you can probably understand why I'm a little frustrated with VaatiVidya. I don't think I'm as frustrated with him as I am with our current political situation, but I did want to share as we went down this journey that if you want to see into my closet or my abyss, I have one comment that I left in 2015 that I'm incredibly ashamed of, but I'm sure at some point, if I gain enough traction or popularity, someone's going to bring it up. And it's relating to who I supported in that election, but I'm not one for the internet. I grew up with dial-up, so for the most part, I like forums and image boards, really. Anyway, I just wanted to share that because I don't come with this like ferocity against the people who argue against my existence with no understanding of what their arguments are. I once lived with that same level of ignorance, and as a result, I know that they are just bullies. But the thing about bullies, you can just stand up to them. They don't actually have any power unless you give it to them. And that's why I'm trying to share the old switcheroo and like the little tactics that I've picked up along the way, because in my day-to-day, there aren't many trans people that I interact with, and yet there are a few conservatives I interact with, and even they will respect my pronouns. And the idea is, beneath all of it, I like to think, a generally good person. I'm a good worker. I do my job. And so when I see these people who are ignorant and spouting hate against trans people, it's hard for me to stomach that, knowing that I fought for the rights to be able to say what you want. And at the end of the day, maybe it is a joke, but I can make jokes back. It doesn't make any of them funny. It makes it so that we're all just stewing in a pile of like hate and filth. And honestly, I just want to play Dark Souls. I don't want to fight the Four Kings again. And I forgot to even get the Lord Vessel first. So Darkstalker Kaith, he didn't even have anything good to say to me. Not yet, at least, but at least we know there's another primordial serpent, and that the Firekeeper or the Kinglicker or whatever that other primordial serpent is. I want you to know, if you're here to support me, I'm here to support you. Regardless of my ignorance in the past, I do think that January 6th sort of flipped a switch in my brain to where doing things for others doesn't mean putting your country above yourself. And in the Navy, we used to say ship, shipmate, self. But the reality of the situation is the best way to be there for everyone around you is to be there for yourself. That's why I want you to be kind to yourself in the Friends of Basket sort of structure that I'm trying to provide for just like a way to be a good person without there being this sort of politicization of how we believe the world should be. We aren't here to play SimCity with our politics. We're just here trying to get by. I would love if I could just work my job for 30 years and keep taking classes and learn all there is about the world before getting hit by a bus or something, and then, you know, whatever happens after we die. But when I stare into the abyss now and I scream, it is so nice to feel your support. Because the entire reason I even sort of came back to YouTube was because I posted up a college project on this channel that I once did Let's Plays on. And I got a comment from someone who used to watch my Let's Plays, and that someone used to be a friend in high school. And it made me remember we could just be friends. We could just have a good time. We could just play Dark Souls. We don't have to solve the world's problems. And I know we want to, but that desire to fix the world only leads to people believing that you can stop people from being trans by debating them out of it. And the idea that we're out here trying to convince people of our ideas, I don't know how to say this, but none of us are actually that important. Like, we are all important to ourselves, and our world is absolutely important, but our world is not worth pushing it off onto others, and yet so many people do that. And so I want to make it clear, when I act the way I do, all I'm doing is holding up a mirror to the world. It's the same ignorance they apply when making their bad faith arguments. It's the same violent rhetoric. It's just mine is a little more satirical than theirs. And I'm fighting on the good side. So I appreciate you all being here and joining me. I know I didn't talk about Dark Souls a whole lot. Maybe I'll get to it next time. I just got a little distracted because you can't just say it's a joke. There's no setup or punchline. At least mine references King of the Hill. Great show, by the way. #1 American anime. Anyway, 4 Kings ought to be dead by now, eh? Thank you all so much for joining me. And I guarantee in the next episode we're going to Sen's Fortress. And Orlando is just a hop, skip, and gargoyle jump away. So, I love you all so much. These times are tumultuous, but I will be here for you. And I will be playing Dark Souls. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. So, bye!